Imagine the following scene. A lion, driven by the pain of losing its cubs, challenges one of nature's deadliest predators, the Nile crocodile. But what happens when a king, overtaken by grief and primal instinct, decides to defy the very laws of nature in search of revenge? You might be wondering, what would drive a lion to challenge a crocodile? That's where the story becomes even more astonishing. Get ready to discover what truly happens when a predator decides to challenge the natural cycle, and, in the end, what he loses in exchange for this fierce battle. You could never have imagined what's coming next. In the heart of the Okavango Delta, one of the largest inland wetlands in the world, lives an extraordinary lineage of lions. Unlike the great cats of the savannah, these lions must master not only the land, but also the water. According to National Geographic, they are the only known lions that swim regularly to hunt and survive. The delta's cycle of floods and droughts, driven by rains that occur thousands of miles away, forces a unique behavioral adaptation among these predators. When the floods transform the plains into a vast archipelago, these lions are forced to cross deep, fast-moving channels. For them, swimming between islands isn't just an option. It's a vital necessity to access prey and ensure safety. Studies from the Okavango Wilderness Project report that these dangerous crossings frequently expose lions to submerged threats, especially Nile crocodiles, silent predators that dominate these waters. Crossing rivers in the delta is not just a natural obstacle. It's like traversing an underwater minefield, where one wrong move can cost a life. The Nile crocodile is the embodiment of invisible danger, a silent threat lurking beneath the muddy surface, ready to strike without warning. While threats on the savannah can often be seen or heard from a distance, in the delta, death waits beneath the surface without a hint. Thus, the survival of these lions depends as much on strength as on caution, in an environment where predator versus predator conflict takes unexpected and brutal forms. As the seasonal waters invade the Okavango Delta, the territory fragments, forcing the lions to rebuild their domains in an unrelenting cycle. They must protect their cubs amidst rising floods, hunt on small isolated islands, and face adversaries not found anywhere else in Africa. And on the horizon, as the waters rise, an even deadlier challenge approaches, hidden among the delta's swirling currents. As the Okavango Delta expands during the flood season, its winding channels become true corridors of death. According to BBC Earth, these waterways harbor a high density of Nile crocodiles, predators that have ruled these waters for millions of years. For the Okavango lions, every crossing is a calculated risk, and the margin for error is minimal. In these murky waters, each crossing is like a dark pact with death, a brutal demand of the Okavango's unpredictable nature. Unlike other regions of Africa, where lions can avoid dangerous rivers, in the Okavango they are constantly forced to swim between islands. Expeditions from the Okavango Wilderness Project reveal that Boya was respected for both his strength and his ability to decode the mysteries of the wild delta. The loss of cubs during these crossings is a common tragedy, with crocodile attacks capable of wiping out entire generations. The numbers are staggering. In extreme events, up to 5 out of 6 cubs can be lost in a single attack, highlighting the brutality of this environment. Each advance into the waters is a desperate gamble for survival. The Nile crocodile is an unmatched threat in this setting. Capable of ambushing with almost surgical precision, it takes advantage of the lion's vulnerability while swimming. According to records from the Smithsonian Magazine, the attack technique of these reptiles is nearly foolproof. Remain motionless until the perfect moment, then strike with enough force to drag prey underwater in seconds. In this silent theater of ambushes, even the greatest land predators become prey. As the Okavango's relentless natural cycle continues, the deadly waters shape not only the territory, but also the behavior of its inhabitants. Lions must quickly learn to assess every crossing, every current, every shadow beneath the surface. But even with sharpened instincts, tragedy isn't always avoidable. And among the many stories of loss, one in particular would become a symbol of pain and transformation, that of Boya, the Lion King of the Delta. In the complex ecosystem of the Okavango Delta, the Nile crocodile establishes itself as one of the most formidable predators in Africa's wild nature. According to National Geographic, these reptiles reach impressive sizes, exceeding 5 meters in length and weighing more than 500 kilograms, with a bite force strong enough to easily crush bones, as reported by BBC Earth. Crocodiles represent a challenge few land predators can face directly. Unlike big cats like lions, who rely on teamwork and strategy, the Nile crocodile operates almost exclusively through stealth and brute force. Experts from the Okavango Wilderness Project have documented how the combination of silent ambushes and explosive attacks makes these reptiles an unbeatable threat in their aquatic territory. Even experienced adults can be caught off guard in treacherous, murky waters where the predator can stay submerged for hours, lying in wait. These crocodiles attack not only out of a need for food, but also for territorial defense. As observed on the Smithsonian Channel, young lions, cubs, and even robust adults can fall victim if they inadvertently enter ambush zones. River crossings in the Okavango thus become a deadly game, where every move is a risky bet in the cycle of animal survival. In an environment where predator versus predator conflict is constant, not even a lion's reputation as king of the savannah guarantees its safety. In the vast watery expanse of the delta, the crocodile reigns supreme, reshaping lion group dynamics and leaving deep scars in the history of many. And it was in this shadow-haunted landscape that Boya, young and bold, encountered his first irreversible wound. Among the many kings who challenged the hardships of the Okavango Delta, Boya stood out for his courage and fierce determination. Young, strong, and strategic, he led his small pride through unstable territories shaped by the cycle of floods and droughts. As recorded by the Okavango Wilderness Project expeditions, Boya was respected for both his strength and his ability to navigate the delicate balance of Africa's wild nature. But even he could not foresee the tragedy that was about to strike his lineage. During a forced crossing between islands, driven by the sudden floods of the Okavango Delta, Boya watched as his pride launched into the infested waters. Nile crocodiles, invisible beneath the muddy surface, awaited. As observed in reports from BBC Earth, in a single explosive attack, 5 of the 6 cubs were lost, victims of the crocodile's brutal jaws. The irreparable loss left deep scars on the young king's soul. The tragedy was not limited to the cubs. One of the females, Boya's loyal companion, was also captured and subdued by the treacherous waters. As documented by Smithsonian Magazine, for the lions of the Okavango, each crossing represents not just the threat of death, but also the risk of emotional and social loss, completely disrupting the lion's group dynamics. Boya was now a wounded king, carrying scars not only on his body, but also on his spirit. As the Okavango's current carried away bodies and drowned hope, a silent storm was born within Boya. A dark instinct that would not be satisfied with mere survival. An instinct that went beyond ordinary animal survival, fueled by animal vengeance and pain. With his pride devastated, the king of the Delta was about to write a new chapter in history. A chapter where the instinct for protection would dangerously mix with the desire for retribution. After the tragedy in the Okavango Delta, Boya was no longer just a lion trying to survive. He had become something different. Observers from the Okavango Wilderness Project noted a distinct change in his behavior. Boya began hunting young crocodiles, an extremely rare behavior in the African wild. It wasn't merely behavioral adaptation to secure food, it was something deeper, an instinct for animal vengeance shaped by the irreparable loss he had suffered. The selection of his prey was precise and determined. Small crocodiles, who had not yet developed a strong bite force, became the preferred target. As evidenced by studies cited by BBC Earth, such encounters were brief, brutal, and carried a dark symbolism. The necessity of predator versus predator conflict, driven not by hunger but by an instinctive desire for revenge. Boya, who once avoided the most dangerous areas, now marched into the heart of danger, boldly and furiously challenging the hidden empire of the crocodiles. As recorded by the Smithsonian Channel, he dared to venture into zones where even groups of lions avoided entering. His protection of future cubs, and perhaps of himself, seemed to depend on the systematic destruction of an invisible threat that had turned the dangerous river crossings into a silent graveyard. But Boya's fury knew no limits. And soon he would find himself facing even deadlier enemies, on a journey where every clash would be a dance with death. Driven by a flame burning stronger than the very instinct for animal survival, Boya would begin to challenge not only young Nile crocodiles but also battle-scarred veterans who had reigned over the delta's waters for years. As Boya intensified his crusade against the Nile crocodiles in the Okavango Delta, his behavior became increasingly daring. Initially focused on young and inexperienced reptiles, he soon began challenging much more dangerous opponents. As reported by the Okavango Wilderness Project, the risk of predator versus predator conflict increased with each encounter. These encounters were not mere hunting episodes but true ritualistic battles, staged in the raw arena of the African wild. Boya faced each crocodile as if waging a personal war, driven by animal vengeance and the trauma of the loss he had suffered in the treacherous waters. On several occasions, as observed by researchers from BBC Earth, Boya emerged victorious, but each victory came with new wounds and growing physical exhaustion. His confrontations became emblematic events in the region's dynamics of animal survival. With each fight, Boya exposed himself more to the relentless harshness of the delta's natural cycle, where behavioral adaptation is the only guarantee of survival. The king's courage seemed to challenge even the very cycle of floods and droughts that shaped the land he fought on. However, as nature's chroniclers know well, in the untamed vastness of the Okavango, every escalation comes at a price. And for Boya, fate reserved a final confrontation, against an adult crocodile, experienced and marked by years of dominance in waters where only the strongest survive. Boya's rise and relentless battles culminated in a fight marked by the inevitability of fate. The lion's last challenge against an adult crocodile, a veteran predator with countless battle scars, took place in murky waters, where the aquatic habitat advantage belonged entirely to the reptile. As reported by the Okavango Wilderness Project, this crocodile, with immeasurable strength, became the last obstacle in Boya's path. Wounded and exhausted, he faced an adversary that would not yield. In a swift and decisive move, the crocodile attacked, grabbing Boya by the hind legs with deadly precision. As mentioned by National Geographic, the bite force of a Nile crocodile, which can reach up to 2,000 psi, was enough to drag the lion underwater, where the fight became a battle for life and death. Boya, the king of the delta, fought bravely, but the seconds that passed beneath the surface proved fatal. Boya's body was found hours later, emerging from the waters with visible signs of a fierce and ultimately lost battle. As reported in ecological studies of the Okavango, this event not only marked the end of a lineage but also symbolized the cruel reality of the delta's relentless natural cycle. The death of the great leader reverberated throughout the pride whose members now faced the emptiness left by his leadership. This grim event reminds everyone in the African wild that despite strength and courage, the fate of predators is intertwined with the same challenges faced by their prey. The Okavango, with its untamed nature, never forgives. And while the delta's lions now face a future without Boya, other predators continue to carve out their own battles for survival. Boya's story, the lion who challenged death in search of vengeance, is just one chapter in the relentless narrative of the Okavango Delta's wild nature. In a region where the cycle of floods and droughts shapes the lives of all beings, the lions, crocodiles, and other creatures of the delta must continuously adapt or succumb. As mentioned by National Geographic, the natural cycle makes no concessions, and those who fail to adjust to the flow of the waters or seasonal changes are left behind. Boya's death was a cruel reminder that while the African wild is filled with moments of glory and victory, it is equally a battlefield of endless struggles. The crocodiles, with their crushing bite force and deadly patience, continue to dominate the waters, while the lions, through behavioral adaptation, strive to rise after every blow. The group dynamics of the lions constantly shift, as evidenced by studies of predator social behaviors in the Okavango. The death of a leader represents not just a physical loss but also a deep psychological blow to the group. And so, nature continues its merciless cycle. As researchers from the Wildlife Conservation Society point out, the loss of a dominant predator can trigger a cascading effect throughout the ecosystem, altering the structure of animal behavior across the region. As the Okavango fills with the waters of the flood season, new forces rise to fill the vacuum left by Boya. The cycle continues without mercy and without interruption. This is the ruthless world of nature, where life is constantly shaped by forces beyond any living being's control. Every victory is temporary, and every defeat serves as a reminder of the fragility of wildlife, where even kings fall, and the cycle renews itself. Now that you've seen how Boya's quest for vengeance led to an unexpected tragedy, I ask you, does nature really allow anyone to overcome the fury of fate? What would you do in a situation where the loss seems unbearable, and the only answer is vengeance? Is it possible to challenge the natural cycle without paying a fatal price? If you were as surprised as I was by the outcome of this story, imagine what else the wild world has to offer. Don't forget to comment on what you thought and what your strategy would be to survive in a world as ruthless as the Okavango Delta. And of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep exploring the fascinating universe of wild nature, with stories that will surprise you in every episode.